go in without knocking.
Come in.
If she's expecting you, why do you have to knock?
Father Arno, I presume. You didn't have too much difficulty finding my office?
No, the concierge told me what I needed to know. You have a wonderful place.
All the art objects surrounding me were bequeathed by my mentor and friend, the late Professor Herman von Goethe.
I know his reputation. He was a great traveler.
And a distinguished scholar. Tell me, did you have a pleasant journey?
Yes, thank you. I admired the Transylvanian landscape, then I fell asleep.
And you've come from Transylvania?
From Vladiviste, to be precise.
The homeland of Vlad the Impaler. You made the right choice of locales to investigate vampires. Herman went there too when he was young. He never told me. I've had various hypotheses, of course, but I must confess, the question intrigues me. And to think that the answer might lie behind you. The personal papers of Herman are in this strongbox. He died suddenly, and didn't have the time to give me the code for opening it.
Can I try to open it? I'm no expert in the matter, but with a little luck.
Gladly. I'd be very grateful if you managed to open Herman's strongbox.
This lock is incredibly noisy. Or has my ear become more sensitive? I can't get over how clearly I can hear the mechanism. It's extraordinary.
I'm gonna write this down really fast. I don't remember if I need to, but I'm going to.
I found the combination. MDCCCXX. Looks like a number in Roman numerals.
Thank you for opening the strongbox, Father. Would you be so kind as to deposit the contents on my desk? A wax cylinder and a letter. Let's see the letter. Very interesting. Are you familiar with the name of Bram Stoker?
He's the author of Dracula. I had the opportunity of perusing his novel.
This is a letter from Mr. Stoker addressed to Herman. Read it, please.
Dear Master, I must admit your last letter caused me some grief. I hereby hope to reassure you and above all convince you that I did not misuse the fascinating history that you recounted to us at the Beefsteak Club. Above all, please know that I have never doubted the gravity of this matter. It's precisely for that reason that I have found it a good source of inspiration. I understand that you do not wish to be troubled, since all you did was perform your duty. However, during the most memorable meeting at the club, you most certainly suggested that we employ prudence and discretion, but you didn't require us to keep an absolute secret. Why act in such manner if not because you wished in one way or another to warn humanity against the danger that you had faced? And is this not the real reason for which you confided in us? Or, if it's impossible to reveal the naked truth without bringing you any prejudice, what better means of warning our contemporaries, I'm stuck at saying big words, against the lords of night than a novel? that reveals their tricks and especially the means to destroy them. Thus I had reason, that is why I wrote my Dracula, this book, of which you disapprove today. Consider, however, that I have moved the action from Transylvania to England, that I created two distinct characters from your Luciana, in other words, that I considerably altered your story, which, must we note, recounts events that are already 24 years old. Is this not enough to protect you? As for to your other criticisms, do they not contradict the first ones? Because after having reproached me for having disclosed too much, you accuse me of deforming and watering down the facts. It's true that I often let my imagination and sensibility guide my quill. The greatest liberty that I took was no doubt to give my novel a happy end. But the story of a failure could have generated such stress when we wished, on the contrary, to inspire hope and the desire to fight. Finally, you write, I would have preferred that you not quote me. To my deepest regret, in order to respect your will, I struck out from the drafts your real family name. Will you at least allow me to designate you by the Latin form of your name? Arminus? Without that, I would feel guilty of literary ingratitude. Please accept my sincere devotion and admiration, Bram Stoker. That was a long letter, now my throat hurts.
So then Stoker was inspired by a story told him by Professor von Bergen, the story of events that had taken place in Transylvania, perhaps in Bladoviste?
It's probable.
Did you know that Professor van Bergen knew Bram Stoker?
Yes, but I ignored all the details that are recounted in this letter. I only knew that Stoker had cited Herman among the sources inspiring him, and Herman was not flattered.
Had the professor foreseen the novel's success?
In no way. One day he told me, speaking of Stoker, that irresponsible man didn't understand half of what I told him. He's peddling errors that could cost people their lives. Fortunately, his book will be quickly forgotten.
No, it won't. I actually like Dracula. I've read it before, so...
The first trace we have stems from ancient Babylon. The creation poem contains sinister allusions to Lilith, the unappeasable, who sucks the blood of newborns. Several centuries later, the Odyssey evokes dead people who crowd together to drink at a blood-filled ditch. But it's in Europe, beginning in the 14th century, that veritable epidemics of vampirism are described. They would continue until the 18th century, a period which left us much written testimony.
For example?
The famous Visum and Repertum report, written in 1732 by a retired Austrian military doctor. In it, we learn in abundant detail how Serbian peasants open a vampire's grave and execute him by driving a stake through his heart.
I would kill anyone.
What an energetic method.
Not really.
It's very widespread. In Russia, they use an aspen stake. In other places, it's made of hawthorn, from which Christ's crown of thorns was woven. It has to. Reports describe hundreds of grave openings. The vampire's cadaver is identifiable because it's perfectly conserved. It often appears swollen by the blood it has absorbed. The blood stains its clothes, its nails, or its mouth. It's sometimes so abundant that it overflows the coffin. What do you mean by believe, Father?
I mean, do you think that vampires have a real, objective existence?
Real or objective? You must choose, Father. Because the only immediate reality is subjective. The rest are just hypotheses.
All right, your viewpoint is unassailable. So let me reformulate my question. According to you, has the existence of vampires been demonstrated?
Jean-Jacques Rousseau said, if ever there was in the world a warranted and proven history, it is that of vampires. Nothing is lacking. Official reports, affidavits of well-known people, of surgeons, of priests, of magistrates. The evidence is most complete.
Yet all these stories and affidavits seem very confused to me. I sense nothing coherent behind it all. Didn't you say yourself that the traditions don't agree?
Don't take the legends literally. I think they are the deformed reflection of a truth that is even more horrible. This book, The Lords of Twilight, is the most rigorous volume ever written on vampires.
Oh boy, which one? That one? I guess it. Oh, fine. I'm not reading all of this probably. You're gonna have to pause to read this because I'm not reading at all. I'm sorry, my throat hurts. Alright, I'll read this part though. The Path of the Dragon. The trials of the path are at the crossing points of the real, the symbolic, and the magical. They are tremendously selective, and if it happens that exceptional beings overcome one or two of them without realizing fully the journey they are undertaking. Completing it requires a total commitment and unfailing will, as well as an intangible factor that we may call demonic grace, because no one can come a lord without the favor and the approval of a lord. The path received its name in honor of the most remarkable lord in history, Vlad Tepes, Dracula, the dragon. It is therefore certain that the prince traveled the path, and it is highly probable the others later followed it up to him. Vlad, however, was not the first. The path existed before him, and he received his baptism from an elder lord. Documents prove, in fact, that the path has been codified since the dawn of history. The cryptograms that structure it were copied numerous times. The manner in which they merge with the sacred art of their times demonstrates that among the crowd of native copyists, a handful of initiates were at work, as desirous, of ensuring the eternity of their knowledge as to reserve access to it to an elite. Lilith was the first one. She gave it to them.
The Lords of Twilight is the work of an insane person. It's sheer madness.
Father, the war that has just ended shows that the whole world can go mad. In less than 30 years, evil will seize power and the earth will once more catch fire.
No, not so quickly, not so soon. After the carnage we went through, the world will take the time to let its wounds heal.
No, it won't.
Lucy, the author of the book, the Thule Society that publishes it,
Cthulhu?
are criminals who
Really?
won't hesitate,
Oh, Thule.
trampling
I
on
was like,
corpses to
Cthulhu
gain power
Society?
and
That's
eternal
a great
life.
one.
The war will come because of them and their like. That's very possible. Vlad was a cruel ruler, intelligent and determined. He could very well have made a deal with the devil and conquered immortality.
Or Lilith.
So he would have lived several centuries?
To be sure.
But where would he be hiding?
In Vladiviste? Why not? Or elsewhere. The fox might have changed his den. The only way to tell would be to follow the path until its end. It's a group founded by Heinrich von Kreutzberg on the ruins of the Golden Dawn, another secret society. Thule reached out to Professor von Bergen many times, but he couldn't bear them. He always kept his distance, and I followed his example.
Did they approach you?
Many times. Openly, then in any roundabout way. Well, they're very clever, very influential. I would never compromise myself with them. Do you know the hidden apocalypse of Thomas the Greater?
Yes. There are those who say it is a prophetic work.
Here it
Ellie!
is. Open the book, and you will read some astonishing things.
Oh, great, more reading. Oh, that's a big
This
book.
page reveals the origin of the Great War.
Really?
The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand at Sarajevo. The event that would submerge the world in horror had been announced centuries before in this book.
Really? This page, you said?
Forget the direction you ordinarily read in. Try to compose words vertically or diagonally. See?
Casus belli. The cause of the war.
Exactly. The prophecy contains two other terms that cross the first one. Look for them, and you will find the date and place of the assassination. Here's the date. Here's the place. Everything's there. In 1914, in Sarajevo, the incident that caused the war occurred. It can't be a coincidence.
It's very odd, I grant you that.
That's the past. Now let's discover the future. You see, on this page, the Thule Society is clearly designated. Its name is associated with Caius, which means massacre. To know more, look for connected terms.
I can never get this one to work. That's supposed to be German.
Are you giving up? So now everything is clear. At the instigation of the Thule Society, evil will triumph in Germany in 1936, and there will be massacres.
So this prophecy is at the root of your mistrust of the Thule Society.
It's just one element among many others. Believe me, those people have no notion of compassion. I see it as a way to force destiny, to attain, thanks to the force, spheres forbidden to man.
How could that be possible?
Father, you are well placed to know that sacraments of good exist. You must accept that there are also sacraments of evil, handed down from time immemorial.
If they do exist, these sacraments can only be dangerous illusions.
They do exist. 7 of them. 7 stages of the same route. 7 trials to change a man into a bloodthirsty monster who pretends to deal with God as an equal. The keys to the path of the dragon are hidden in ancient documents. Take this occult work. It contains an illustration that I would ask you to examine carefully.
I know that painting. I saw it very recently. It's Raphael's crucifixion scene. Well, no, it's not precisely the same work.
Excellent memory. It is indeed a copy. We shall point out the differences with the original one by one. In the original painting, the angel on the left holds 2 chalices.
To be sure, I remember that very well. In your copy, the angel on the left is only holding 1 chalice.
Absolutely. That's the most flagrant difference. There's another one, but you'll need a magnifying glass to see it. Focus your magnifying glass on the base of the cross.
An inscription, but it's in ancient Enochian. Do not let your blood flow in vain. A strange locution. What meaning do you ascribe to all this?
Herman had an idea on the subject.
These variations between the 2 versions of the crucifixion are troubling. You say that Professor Van Bergen was able to interpret them?
Herman was convinced that the variations in the documents revealed the secrets of the path. Imagine yourself as a copyist, seeking to transmit a message to initiates. Two methods are possible. Either you add an element to the original, or more subtly, you remove one.
The chalice?
Yes, it's absent from the copy, and I think it's a way to draw attention to it. The devil leaves his signature in its absence, Herman said.
Then the chalice is important.
An object is associated with each stage of the path. I'd venture a guess that the chalice is one of them. There are 6 others to discover.
What happens at the end of the route?
The initiate must accomplish one last rite. He won't be able to unless he's understood all he's achieved before. That is, if he knows the order of the trials as well as the objects and symbols related to each of them. If you want to transmit forbidden knowledge, it's an advantage to plagiarize sacred art. Your copy will be piously conserved by simple folk who don't even suspect what you've hidden there. And your message will go through the centuries, understood only by those to whom it is addressed, your spiritual brothers, the initiates. That's true, but it's very hard to find one's way in it. Herman had a very particular way of storing his books. Let's say he classified them more poetically than functionally. Without this catalog associating each book with its call number, I'd be lost in my own library. Every time I take a volume from the shelf, I write its call number on a bookmark I slip between the pages. That way I can put it back in place without losing too much time. For the same reason, I use ghosts.
Ghosts?
Yes, there are ghosts in my library. That's what we call the pieces of white cardboard that signify the place of a missing work on the shelf.
Professor, I don't want to take up too much of your time. This visit was most interesting, even if, I must admit, your opinions hardly go in the sense my hierarchy expected.
It's regrettable that the Catholic Church is so rigid. But even if the existence of vampires may be doubted, the existence of the Thule Society is unquestionable. Beware of it, Father. I'll gather some documents that will show you all of the malevolence of this organization. Where can I send them to you?
At the Vlava Vista Inn, if you'd be so kind. Thank you for receiving me so graciously, Professor.
I wish you a safe journey back to Transylvania, Father. I'll keep you.
What an astonishing conversation. It's as if this woman lived in another world. I'll have to test some of these arguments on Professor Kruger. I'm curious to know his opinion.
1820 to 1913. Wow. Oh yeah, that number that was on the safe was 1820. If you didn't know that. So that will be important later on.